Hello, my name is Jasmine Keys, and you are tuned into Reuters Events Women in Marketing series, where every other Tuesday I sit down with one of the most inspirational and driven leaders across the globe. Today, I am joined by Nicole Portwood, Mountain Dew's VP of Marketing and a founding member of Reuters Events Women in Marketing. Welcome back, Nicole. We're very excited to have you here.
Thank you so much, Jasmine. It is so great to be here. And I just want to say congratulations to you. This series has turned into something really quite incredible. And I've been tuning in every week, hearing from these inspirational women, and I've learned so much. So it's really an honor to be here to share my perspective and have my voice join those others. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, making me blush.
Well,
it really is a testament to all the leaders that are joining us. And you know, people are giving their time and they're joining this community. And I really hope that everyone's getting value out of it. So, but thank you so much for those kind words. We actually launched this series together back in December 2020. And I asked you why this webcast is important. And you broke it down into two equal focus points. One, no matter what business you are in, you exist in service of people. And with that in mind, it's obvious that you need to reflect that humanity in the way you connect with those you are serving. And secondly, we still live in a world predominantly designed for men. But rather than navigating through it, let's explore how we can reconstruct it so it's built for all people. And if it's okay with the audience, we'd like to spend the next 15 minutes talking about these 2 points. Of course, we want full audience interaction. This is an open discussion, so please do send through your questions, have a listen, have a think, send through some more, comment on the discussion, share your insights, because we want you to be a part of this conversation. So, Nicole, let's talk about point one and the incalculable value of diversity. And to quote you, no matter what your business is, it exists in service of people. So how does diversity of thought help us serve our customers better?
Yeah, I think there's been a sort of macro shift in the way marketers are thinking about the people they serve. And it's been so delightful to see. I think especially now with the free flow of information, with the intimacy that consumers are expecting from brands and from companies, it's more important now to walk a mile in the shoes of your fans, of the people you serve, than it ever has been. I think for a long time, marketing was sort of thought of as this, tower on the hill, looking down on the people and sort of determining from afar what was best for them and then handing it down. And we're really now in a world that requires that we not only live and breathe and think like the people we serve, but that we're engaged in the societal issues that they care about as well. And we've seen that really accelerated over the course of the last 14 months or so.
Absolutely.
Brands are part of culture, right? Companies are part of culture. And because of that, we have an actual responsibility to that culture in a more profound way than ever. You're seeing organizations step up, make investments, make statements, get involved in politics and legislation at a rate and at a depth that they really haven't ever before. And that's not just because somebody at this company decided, hey, that's a great idea, we should probably be doing this. It's because the people who vote with their dollars are demanding that of organizations, are requiring that we see from their perspective and have empathy. And so the power that is exerted by industry overall over the macro shifts in our lives and the lives that will come after us is really at an all-time high. We've got this program at PepsiCo called Humanize. And while it's certainly not perfect and it's certainly not a fix-all, it is an opportunity to get incredibly close to the people that we're serving through just like this, intimate one-on-one video conversations where we talk to them about their lives. We don't ask them a whole bunch of marketing questions about what would you think if we changed the color of this? Or which of these two ads do you like? We talk to them about their lives, about their value systems, about the things that are important to them, not just when they're staring at a shelf or making a choice in an online setting, but about what's meaningful. And from those things, we begin to really get a better picture of who people are and how those values and organizational systems of thinking should impact the way we're thinking about marketing. one other point I wanted to make on that is that, again, this pandemic has dramatically changed the landscape of pretty much everything in our lives. And one of those key areas is the vast amount of choice that people have. The acceleration of the e-com space has opened up this sort of infinite shelf, the infinite choice that people have in unprecedented ways. There are people who've never shopped online before who now have invited that behavior into their lives in a bold new way, and it's here to stay, right? And so because there is so much choice, and because there is a frictionless way to bring new companies and new brands into your life, it is easier for people to ensure that the choices they are making are centering their values and their worldview in a way that allows them to make those brand choices and help make that manifest. So we've got to really listen, right? We've got to really engage with people, not just do it lip service, not just say we're putting the consumer at the center of things, right? We have to maybe face uncomfortable truths about what we're doing and look for ways to adjust the work and the messaging and the products that we're putting out. Internally at organizations, it is more important than ever that marketing be the function that is the voice of the people we serve. That is the differentiated value that we bring to the organizations we work within. And you're not always going to win the fight. Like, let's be very honest about that. You're not always going to get the whole organization to move in ways that mirror consumer sentiment and are centering that behavior. But we're the only ones who are going to do it. The marketing function is the only one within the organization that is going to speak up for the people we're serving. And it's incumbent upon us to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And to your point on the impact of COVID and the whole pandemic on the way we connect with people, I think there's been a change in consumer brand relationships. Really, we've gone from this transactional, buying the product to really, genuinely wanting to invest in a brand.
Yeah.
Any purchase, I'd say that most purchases that I make are an investment in that brand. I think about, what they actually stand for. I don't want to give my money to someone or some company that doesn't share my values.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What's interesting is that that is absolutely the macro trend and the way people are thinking about how they're investing their dollars. But there are also some very real truths, particularly in the CPG world, which is the lens I'm taking on a lot of this. Mm-hmm. There are some sort of table stakes for all of this, which is you have to provide a value for the money that I'm spending. And so the desire to create a world that reflects your values is very, very real, but you don't get there unless and until you're actually providing a product or service that meets the needs of consumers as well. So it's a twofold approach, right? You still have to provide value in the service or product, but what is differentiating instead of building the better mousetrap, we are looking for ways to bring societal value over and above the value of the product or service itself. And that is, I think, it's not new, but it is certainly accelerated in a way that we have not historically seen, for sure.
Absolutely. And in order to serve our customers and share that purpose and connect with their values, we need to be mirroring the diversity within our organizations and within our marketing, within our campaigns, whatever we're putting out into the world.
Absolutely. Yeah, we absolutely do. And, there are all these old stories of feminine care products that are run by entirely male teams. And, I would never, ever, ever propose that there be a feminine care product team that is exclusively women, right? Because we do want some diversity. What about the men who are going to buy that for someone in their lives? But the idea that, and this sounds a little bit like I'm speaking out of both sides of my mouth, but that's not the intention here. You can create a lot of consumer intimacy by doing those things like video chats, getting out into the marketplace, shopping like your consumers do, engaging with products and services like they do. But that is an academic understanding. And when we're talking about gender diversity in terms of voices internally and in terms of voices that are steering product development and marketing innovation and communications architecture, it is so, so, so important to have lived experiences and felt experiences and diverse perspectives and experiences within that think tank, because you can bring in as much of the consumer experience as possible. But if you haven't actually lived those things, you're still a little bit at an arm's distance. And I think that's where this need, and again, it's not just in terms of gender diversity. This is true across all aspects of identity, and something that I think we're facing a real reckoning with at this moment, where we need to do a much, much, much better job of being inclusive with those voices and ensuring that there's not just a reflection, but a real a formative role for those voices in the development of our business practices.
Yeah, and I think that's a great segue into point 2, which is, how do we build workplaces of the future? And I'm going to quickly just throw to the audience, if you have any questions, do send them through the chat now. But over to you first, Nicole. What is this workplace of the future? How do we build it? How do we reconstruct? What are we going to do?
Yeah, I am going to just preface this by saying I don't have all the answers. I really wish I did. But I do have some thoughts on this subject. I grew up and really built my career in the spirits industry, which is admittedly a very difficult path for female leaders. My approach, and I'll be dating myself a little bit in this, but my approach at that point was really to learn the system, make it work to my advantage, and navigate it as best I could and make a name for myself and, sort of differentiate my work product and my offering. And that worked. Yes, it worked. I have been successful, but it did nothing for the women to come after me, other than provide an example, reinforcing that it can be done, that women can succeed in a man's world. But it can be done if you're willing to laugh things off, if you're willing to look the other way, if you're willing to swallow your pride and do all of those things that were required, frankly. Fast forward to now, I'm raising a daughter of my own, and I don't want her to have to face those unnecessary challenges. But this shift toward inclusion is not just a women's job. This is a mandate for literally every person in the workplace. And up until this point, the burden has really been on women to navigate the workplace. And progressive thinkers and people who have spent their life's work trying to help unknot this challenge for women have done a really, really great job illuminating the challenges and then providing some tools and tricks to help us succeed within them. I don't want to diminish the value of that work at all. It's a step in the right direction and very, very important to get us to where we are now. But now that we know how it works and how to maneuver within it, it's time to take that next step and rethink that architecture altogether. It is an unnecessary burden for women to have to work 30% harder and watch the language that they're using and navigate a man's world, right? That is an unnecessary and unfair burden. And so the first hurdle, I think, is all about education and awareness. Again, it's really been the women's job to figure that out to this point. But now we all need to work together to ensure inclusivity. And so that means things like ensuring that we have gender diverse candidate pools when we have new opportunities, and not just saying, well, this is just the talent that's available. Like, that's not good enough, right? Ensuring that there's an awareness of the kind of language that we're using internally and externally, and how that might create a hostile environment. Can we just look at taking words like bossy and ice queen out of the lexicon, make those verboten, or call people out when they're using that kind of language to speak in a pejorative way about women in the workplace in a way that never is levied toward men. We can look at finding ways to create flexibility and genuine understanding for those kind of caregiver activities that tend to pull women from work. That is a reality. And I know we may get to talk about some of that other stuff later, but despite tremendous progress on the idea of gender roles and stereotypes, that is still where we are. The caregiver role tends to fall toward women in the workplace. And so if we are going to embrace that about women, we need to create environments that are flexible and inclusive enough to allow for it without it feeling like something we need to hide or be punished for, or is going to be damaging to our work product or our ability to deliver. And we need to, I think, allow the space for human to human engagement that values the entirety of the person, that doesn't require that women fit into the box that has come before us, which is that box of sort of male dominance and the male perspective on how to get things done. we have unique gifts and talents. And I think that's one of the things, if I'm being totally candid about this, and this may be a controversial perspective, but I think it's one of the things that has held us back on this progress, is we have tried to say that everything is exactly the same. It is true that we need to have the same opportunities. We need to have the same seat at the table, the same opportunity to contribute to discussion and decision making, and to have roles and representation, of course. But there are differences. And I think rather than trying to squash those and make them fit into a preconceived notion of what a person in business or in marketing should be, we should celebrate those differences. And
absolutely
we should leverage them for change, right? That's where the idea of executive femininity comes into play. What does that mean? What does that look like? And we need to make room for that.
That's the value of diversity.
Right.
Diversity of thought, diversity of ideation. It
Right.
brings so much to a conversation, to an idea, to anything, to a team. Without that, we're just going to fall flat. Like it's no good.
And I think that is, that's a lot of what we're seeing in the dialogue happening around these ideas right now. It's not just about diversity, right? Because diversity calls to mind a number of boxes that need to be filled by people of a certain gender or a certain race or a certain age or whatever the case might be. Inclusivity is that next step. And that's where, that's where I'm sort of pushing on and saying, like, we need to make space for different kinds of people and their voices to be heard and to matter in business.
Yeah, and I think that we're definitely moving in the right direction. Like you said, there's going to be stages, and we'll look back and we'll be like, oh, I wish I could have just jumped to this stage, because that would have been great. But they're all an important part of the journey. So just touching on we haven't got much time, we're running out, but just touching on something you said before. So around childcare, kind of, and the impact of that on women in the workplace. There's been research to show that's one of the reasons for the gender pay gap, the mother pay gap potentially. So how do you think that COVID-19 and the fact that we're all working from home has affected inclusivity in the workplace, and more broadly, how has it affected women and their progression?
Yeah, I mean, the statistics are alarming. Like that's the truth. And this is not just a women's issue, it's a societal issue. And it goes all the way back to that famous Ruth Bader Ginsburg case that was chronicled on the basis of sex, Moritz versus the Commissioner of Internal Revenue, where we are looking at these really deeply entrenched gender roles, right? And those sorts of stereotypes can be damaging to people because it limits the full expression of self, right? And some of that bias shows up in the workplace, but it also shows up everywhere. I will give you a very personal example. I have worked in the world of business for more than 20 years. I am married to an incredibly supportive husband who happens to be a professional musician with a tremendous amount of flexibility. So we made the decision that he would be the contact for the pediatricians and the #1 phone number for the school if something were to happen with the children, right? Without fail, without exception, they always call me first. Without exception, despite the fact that we've been very, very clear with these institutions that my husband is the primary person to receive outreach if anything goes on. And it is maddening because 9 times out of 10, I can't answer the phone because I'm in a meeting or giving a presentation or meeting with a customer or doing something else, right?
That is so strange.
It is maddening. And it's because of these deeply entrenched gender stereotypes. So, we've begun to make strides as a society in normalizing things like gender fluidity, and that's incredible, right? We also need to make some of those similar strides in normalizing the fluidity of gender roles. There don't need to be those kind of very strict rules about how we behave. And again, it's not just in the workplace. That's reflected outside of the workplace as well. But in terms of the COVID-19 experience, my hope is that the flexibility of being able to work from home, coming to the office when you can, when you need to, will actually be better for women. As we sort of press to make this change societally, there are caregiver duties that disproportionately fall on women. And that's not just children, right? That's if your cat or your dog gets sick, or you need to care for a parent or a friend.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, I know we're running short on time. But
there's a whole conversation that we could have as well around maternity and paternity leave and its impacts. But again, we don't have time. I am going to take this one question because it's Sarah McCandless, who I haven't spoken to in a really long time. But she absolutely loves this conversation. She says, Nicole, you are singing my song. You're thinking through the lens of the consumer. What do they truly need and value? How are brands and organizations showing up through actions, not just words? And this includes so much of what you talked about in terms of leadership and employee experience as well, particularly for women in the workplace. She said she would love to hear about an example you can share of how this is being put into action with the Mountain Dew and PepsiCo teams.
Sure. Oh, this is my favorite thing to talk about. So when I joined PepsiCo almost 3 years ago, the very first thing I did within my team was create a fan engagement team. Didn't exist. We have these incredible insights teams that are really just truly best in class, amazing insights folks. But as I mentioned, that keeps some of these things at an arm's length. So I created this team as part of my core working team. Their sole focus was to center the fan. And, you know, in the Mountain Dew business, we're incredibly fortunate to have this very, very deeply engaged fandom. It's a cult-like brand. They love it. They're very vocal, which is great. I definitely thrive in environments like that. But we immediately began diving into what do they love? What do they need? How can we serve them better? And that has led to the creation of two very specific initiatives. One is a revamped thing we're calling Dew Nation HQ, and it has nothing to do with buying Mountain Dew. So in the days of yore, right, every one of your loyalty programs would be like scan your receipt or collect bottle cap codes or something like that. I fundamentally believe that you have to unbundle the value of fandom from the value of transaction. Those are two different things.
Yeah.
Right? There's transactional value, which is how much did you buy? Thank you very much, right? Then there's evangelical value. And that is how much of a fan is this person of your brand? How much do they want to talk about you and engage with you and be a magnet for other people to join the fandom? And you cannot overstate that value. What's interesting is they don't always go together. There might be Mountain Dew fans out there who are so deeply engaged and love the brand and only drink it a couple of times a year. For whatever reason. Maybe they used to drink more, maybe they never did, but they just love the brand. Then you might have people who are going through, you know, a 12-pack a week, but they don't engage with the brand at all. They're not always the same person. So I firmly believe you have to pull those apart. So the first was Dew Nation HQ, based entirely on fandom and a desire to engage with us. It has nothing to do with how much Mountain Dew you buy. As a matter of fact, we don't know how much Mountain Dew you buy. But that's gotten us really, really close to the fans with all kinds of challenges and incentives and fun little things that we don't offer to the rest of the world. And it's tied to the Mountain Dew store, which was another innovation with the team, which again, I know to a lot of folks out there probably sounds like, well, yeah, duh, of course you're doing that. But we weren't doing that. And essentially what the store is a way for our fans to have the tools they need to continue to evangelize our brand. And that's something that is absolutely vital for engagement with your truest fans, your deepest fans, the ones who want to get out there and evangelize on your behalf. And that's led to collaborative innovation strategies. That's led to partnerships that we bring to life just for our fans, opportunities for first looks at innovation and programs that we have coming up. And, you know, we've seen the results, like, you know, let's bring it back to kind of the business of marketing here for a second. We've seen the results in our brand equity scores and the affinity and household penetration and all of those metrics that we kind of live and die by. Some of these things that are a little bit more non-traditional have led to massive increases on that front. So I would definitely say it's paid off, and the team is highly engaged with the fandom on an everyday basis. I start almost every day on the Mountain Dew fandom Reddit. There's a Reddit thread that's just like all Mountain Dew fans, and I read everything they have to say about this brand and what they're thinking. And we talk about it as a team and we center it. We can't solve everything, but it's definitely part of the mix.
I mean, if that doesn't inspire you to start your day, I don't know what will.
These are the people I serve. That's where I should be starting my day, right?
This is what I need to do. Can I start a Reddit for Whim? Will you guys post on it? Oh dear, we're out of time. We're completely out of time.
I know.
But thank you so much for joining us, and thank you to our audience for joining. Don't forget to share this webcast with someone you believe will benefit from it. Let's grow this community. I'll be sending around the recordings tomorrow so you can forward them along. This is Women in Marketing with Nicole Portwood, Mountain Dew's VP of Marketing. I'm Jasmine Keys, and I'll see you next time.